In order to create wealth, you have to understand the purpose of cash, right? Or the purpose of wealth. What wealth is, what wealth is not, the purpose of cash. And it's really fascinating when I talk to people. Like, I can talk to somebody for 5 minutes and I can pretty much, even if we're just talking about something random, I can pretty much assess where they are financially because your words betray you. They tell people who you are. And creating wealth, the idea feels hard until you learn how to do it. And then once you learn how to do it, you ask yourself the question, why did I ever feel like this was hard? I don't know if anybody can relate to what I'm talking about, but like when you're on the come up and you're struggling financially and you're like, I don't get why this isn't working. You don't get why it's not working. But number one reason it's not working is because you don't understand what wealth is. You don't understand the purpose of money. And when you start to realize some of those things, you don't understand the difference between cash flow and cash accumulation and cash perpetuation. Like, you don't understand these concepts. You just think, well, money is the stuff you get when you go to work and you trade some of your time, right? And what you do with it is you pay bills, or what you do with it is you pay bills on time and you create good credit. And so my objective is to give you a totally different perspective. Because if you have a totally different perspective, then maybe you'll shift your focus to a totally different purpose when it comes to money. Does that make sense? And so when I think of like the concept in my book on how to build a strong financial house, you have it built on the foundation of truth, because truth is the foundation of everything, right? And then up here you have your asset protection. And then you have your 4 windows. And you have your door with your doorknob, of course. Okay, and so you have, this one is your income window. And on your income window, like most people get their income from their job, right? And so when people think of money, they think, number one, job. And what they do is they trade some of this for some of this. And then they trade this for the stuff that they desire to have for their car, their insurance, and their food, and whatever, their clothes, and whatever else. They trade this for this, and then this for everything else in their life. Okay, cool. And so because everything costs money, they emphasize the money, because everything costs money. And so they think, well, if I can just accumulate more money. And so people obsess, because people obsess in America, in the world, over accumulating money. And they think that cash accumulation is the primary objective of cash. But I submit to you that it's not. So people who are wealthy understand that cash accumulation is not the primary purpose of wealth. I'm going to get into that in a minute. So what happens is this is your what I call your IPA window, this is your WRL window, and this is your outgo window. So most people, poor people, their cash comes in. This is what happens with poor people. Their money comes into their house, and then it goes out the outgo window in the form of bills. Because poor people think the primary purpose of this is to pay for this. Oops. Is to pay bills, right? So poor people, they hyper-obsess on bills, and they hyper-obsess on income so that they can pay those bills. Because if they don't pay those bills, they're going to get phone calls they don't want to receive, like they're going to lose things that they desire to have. And so, like, you may be able to relate to this, maybe not, but you're like, okay, do I pay my water bill this month or my electric bill this month? And maybe none of you have ever been there, but I've been there. That's where I used to live at the end of, am I going to pay my water bill this month or my electric bill this month street, right? And so, okay, are we going to pay the car insurance, or are we going to pay our gas bill? Like, and when I say gas, I'm talking about gas for the house, right? So it's like when you hyper focus on bills, the focus on bills, your focus on this is what makes you poor. It's like thinking that this is the primary purpose of money is what makes you poor, right? Now, middle class people, what they do is they pay their bills on time so they can maintain good credit. So they use debt. And WRL stands for wealth reducing liabilities. So they take some of their money, they borrow money, and then they pay their debts. And so their money comes in through their job, and then it comes down through the debt window, and then through the outgo window, and then out in the form of bills again. But they focus, this is the primary window focus of the middle class people, right? And what a lot of people do is they say, well, if I could just make this window bigger, if I could just get more income for the amount of time that I worked, if I get paid a higher dollar an hour. So I was making $15 an hour, so now if I can make $35 an hour, my life is going to get better. Well, it is going to get incrementally better, but it's not going to get exponentially better, right? Or if I can make $50 an hour, or $75 an hour, or $100 an hour. And most people who are making $25 an hour right now, they think, man, if I could make $100 an hour, I'd be in the catbird seat for the rest of my life. Catbird seat, Texas colloquialism, very good spot. Okay, so rich people understand that this is the window that makes you wealthy. Income producing assets. You take some of your money, you take some of your time, and you put it in here. This is where we put that. And when we do this, when you take some of your money and some of your time and put it in here, in the beginning it produces nothing. And this is why most people never do it. Because when you first start, it's like you can't really ever start making a lot of money until you learn how to stop working for money. And that doesn't mean you stop working, you quit your job because you stop working for money. It means you work on things that don't pay you in the beginning. Because a part of wealth creation, a big part of wealth creation, is delayed gratification. You have to put off things you desire to do now, and you have to sacrifice some of the things you want to do now on the altar of things you want to do in the future. What most people do is they do the exact opposite. They sacrifice the long term on the short term, on the altar of the short term, when making your life better in any arena. You sacrifice the short term on the altar of the long term. It doesn't matter if you want to learn a new skill. It doesn't matter if you want to acquire wealth. It doesn't matter if you want to develop a new physical experience of life, like you want to have more energy and have more health and vitality in your body. It doesn't matter. It always goes down to the same thing. Valuing the long term over the short term. Why? Because eternity is more real than time. Because spirituality is more real than physicality. Because that's what it's a picture of. Like, this is bigger than just a conversation about money. This is a conversation about how life works. And so what happens when you take some of your money and some of your time and you put it in here, in the beginning it does nothing. Then it produces a little bit of money. And then it produces a little more. And then it produces a little more. And then it produces a little more. And this window, as you begin to fill it up with assets, or the assets begin to be more productive and produce more wealth, what happens is this window now starts putting some money back into this window. Right? And so now you have this thing where the money's coming in, but it's coming back. And then eventually, when you get to this point, you get to the point where this window, this income that you're making, now the income producing asset window now pays for your bills. So all of your bills, imagine if you had assets that could pay for all of your bills. For instance, I'm going to take this book. I'm going to take this book right here. This book right here generates between $7,000 and $18,000 a month. I wrote this book in 2006, right? Literally, all of my personal bills could be paid for with this one asset. I wrote the book one time. I put this book, boom, in that window. And every month, month after month after month after month after month after month, whether I go get it or not, this is income that comes in from my income producing asset window every month from this book. My other book, Boss Moves, I wrote that book in 2021. That book generates between $35,000 and $70,000 a month. I'm not, oh, you're so rich and wonderful. That has nothing to do with it. I have an income producing asset window that has assets in it that income can follow. If you're struggling financially right now, it's because you have no assets and you are an asset. Like your work and your time is your only asset. And if that's all you have, for now, that's fine. But man, if you know this now and you keep on living in 5 years from now, that's still all you have, maybe that's a problem. And so, eventually, this window in your house gets so big, you don't need this anymore. Eventually, this window in your house gets so big, not only does it pay for this, not only does it put money over here, but it also pays for your wealth-reducing liabilities. it changes the game forever. Like, when I think about money, this is how I think about it. When I get $1, I don't think, oh, what can I go buy? Like, what can I go buy? What bill can I pay? No, the first thing I think when I get some money is, okay, what can I use this to, what can I use this money for to acquire or enhance an asset that'll produce more money? How can I turn this money into more money? That's my first question. Some of you watching this video right now, it's not your first question, not your second question, not your third question, not your fourth question. In fact, it's not even a question on your question list. And you wonder why you're struggling. You're struggling because all of the money that comes into you and your family, you have to go out and get it. That's why you're struggling. If you think about it, when God made man, where did he put him? Did he put him in a factory? No, he didn't put him in a factory. Oh, he put him in a bakery, right? Because of the economic pie, right? No, he didn't put him in a bakery. Where did God put man when he made him? In a garden. Isn't that fascinating? Because what you do is you plant the seed and the seed becomes the asset. The seed produces the fruit. And the fruit is what you live off of. Of every tree of the garden thou mayest freely eat. And see what's happening, you haven't planted any seeds for assets and you wonder why, like you're doing it. God gave us clues. You're doing it in a different way than he set it up and you're wondering why it's not working. It's not working because he didn't design it to work that way. He designed it to work a different way. And so what you got to do is you got to work within the parameters of how God created the system. Is what I'm saying making sense? I mean, I know I'm getting a little animated right now, but is what I'm saying making sense? This when I got this, it was a wrap. When I understood this, I was rich in my mind before I was rich in my pocketbook because I knew what I had needed to do now. I was done. It wasn't that I didn't have a job. It was that for the first time in my life, and it was April of 1999, for the first time in my life, I hyper-focused on this window. Hyper-focus. Assets. I need more assets. Got to have more assets. Got to have more assets. Got to have more assets. Need some assets. Income can follow.